So we're gonna discuss a number of topics here, but it's right out in the open for everybody now. They're rubbing our faces in everything that we've been saying for years, and of course, I'm talking about the FBI tweeting out the protocols of the learned elders of Zion and not giving any sort of context as to why they were doing that. Just basically, for those in the know, it is about the FBI. I mean, I don't know whether it's complete mockery or what's going on, how that got out there, but we don't need the FBI to tell us. We don't need the investigators to tell us that the protocols is the operative uh, blueprint for world government and everything that we're seeing now. Greetings, Chad. Greetings, Carl. Um, that the protocols are of learned elders of Zion. That's the playbook. That's what's happening. We didn't need the the investigative body behind 9/11 cover-ups and Oklahoma City bombing and all this other stuff. We didn't need these infiltrated jokers to put out to us that, hey, it's the protocols. Oh, and by the way, yeah, what, 8 years ago we could figure out about Jeffrey Epstein, we being the representatives and followers of the People of God Church, the followers of the Virginia militia, the followers of the English common law. We could all figure out Epstein. This guy is running a Mossad child rape blackmail network. We could figure that out, but it wasn't until just last year that the FBI figured it out, and we were telling everybody, yeah, it's the protocols. Like, all one has to do is read the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, and figured everything out. That's the playbook. That's what you're seeing. So there you have it. Not much else to say. Uh, it's um, it's all very obvious what's going on. So I'm just inviting some folks to the broadcast in case one was wondering why I am kind of just talking about whatever kind of inane chatter to keep from having dead air. That's what's going on here. And I'm just inviting so many folks. I really don't care. It's just everybody on the list I'm inviting, and there you have it. It's something I'm gonna do just to get as many folks watching. I mean, it's like, a lot of folks. But in any event, I guess, to not waste time, we'll just tell you what the episode tonight is called in case you weren't tuned in at the beginning. The FBI and the Protocols of Zion. Was Hitler Jewish? We're going to delve into that one because I'm not going to reel back in uh my Hitler was Jewish claims, because there's so much there's so much not just circumstantial evidence, which is mostly what it is, but there is genetic testing to attest to that. What I guess maybe what I'm going to say is more accurate is, was Hitler a Mischling? The answer is yes. Was Hitler a 100% Ashkenazi? We're going to delve into that tonight. So that's what we're going to delve into. The protocols, we're going to show you exactly what was going on with the FBI tweeting that out and then their response. And, uh, tie that into National Socialist propaganda and the the technique of the enemy to get out in front of all of their lies and to be the cheerleaders for the most the most virulent and ridiculous of the arguments against their operation. So, hey, I invited this guy Roland Max on. He said no. I mean, I'm going to see if I can invite him on and have him. Uh, yeah, let's see. I'm not able to add him. That's strange. Um, but in any event, I was a little late getting on because I was attempting to get him on, and we might as well get right into it because I don't like to promote these disinformation. Hey, Richard, how's it going? I'm gonna see if I can bring Richard on. All right, all right. Let's see. I don't know what's going on with it, but I am not able to add you, Richard. Maybe send if you can send a request. If there's any way you can send a request to get on. Otherwise, the call in number is 646 668 2151. We can have you on there. That's Richard Hobbs. That is one of the individuals who brought me into the knowledge this esoteric and occult knowledge, and we're going to talk right about that. But everything in order. There was a new video put out under the YouTube page Central Intelligence Agency. Now that's that anonymous guy who goes by Pharaoh Show, and basically his angle is everything is controlled by the Swiss Nazi Templar pharaonic line, and his latest abomination was making the claims that Jeffrey Epstein was related to the von Epstein uh, noble family of medieval Germany. And when I saw that headline on another, I guess I would say normally a good researcher's, not normally, a consistently over the year good researcher's page. And I don't like to jump, into like one way or the other. I like to just state how it is. I've been after this Pharaoh Show guy who nobody knows what his name really is. He's obviously a Mossad agent, and he's making a comparison with the von Epstein family and saying that that's what's going on. It's not these Jews like Weinstein or Epstein that are or Ghislaine Maxwell that are going and causing all these problems. That's a cover. They're just pretending to be the what he calls the jaywalkers, basically the synagogue of Satan, the bloodline Ashkenazi that is recognized by modern genetics and extensive genealogy. And so, as someone who has researched the von Epstein family through my own family genealogy, and seeing that and going like, yeah, this is kind of obscure information, and most folks wouldn't really get it, and there's a lot of question marks, and basically Family Search DNA run by the Latter Day Saints Church. So that's significant because the founder Joseph Smith has a particular bloodline Y DNA haplogroup R-M222. That's, for layman's terms, it's known as the bloodline of High King Nile of the Nine Hostages, or the Royal Unile clan. But it's much larger than that. It's the basis of all legitimate royal bloodlines in Europe. Basically, the King of England can't be the King of England, legitimate King of England, unless they have that particular Y DNA haplogroup, which Joseph Smith has, which all of the legitimate monarchs of Britain or the Irish Isles have. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna bring Clifford on now, and on with the with not being able to bring Richard Hobbs on. But like I said, Richard, if you wish to call in, the call in number is 646-668-2151. I don't know if there's some kind of restriction on your on your Facebook account or something like that, but I've tried to bring you on. I've tried to send an invite. But anyway, hey Cliff, I'm gonna try to bring Richard back on here in about like a half hour if he's still around.
Yeah, just let me know.
Okay. So have you been like watching this? Basically, I
just started watching.
Okay.
So I was hearing you talk about Joseph Smith's genetics. That's where I jumped in.
So that's why the Family Search DNA, and that's why the Latter-day Saints has the largest collection of genealogy and genetics in the world, because this is an important thing. And through Family Search and other genealogical record sites, I have I guess when you go back to individuals that are known to living individuals, it was through my mother's side, through a Taylor family, then through some what they would call Pennsylvania Dutch. Hey, we're getting a weird background noise there, Cliff. But
yeah, sorry, that was a buzz.
Okay. So in any event, I came back to something called the von Epstein family, and when you get back to the 16th century, it was Count Conrad Funk, allegedly, and this is why I say allegedly, because there's sites that say one thing and other sites that say the other, but just displaying that I know about the von Epstein family. And they don't have anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein or Epstein from Welcome Back, Kotter, or any of the Ellis Island immigrants to the United States from Eastern Europe that call themselves Jews. I'm just displaying that Count Conrad Funk was allegedly married to Agnes von Erbach, and this gets back, and then their next generation back is the Everhart family. So I remember that, and then that is connected to the von Epstein family and a different family called the von Eppenstein family. So I'm just displaying that when, the fact that Jon Stewart has the name Jon Stewart, and that's his official name, that doesn't mean that he is related to the royal Jacobite line of the English and Scottish kings, the Stuarts. So it's interesting how easy it is to manipulate the minds of individuals who are overloaded with information and wish to find out what's absolutely true. And then we have disinformation as easy as just saying, this is the same name as that name, so this person is connected to the von Epsteins. It's not the Jews, it's the Swiss, and it's the
No,
German
yeah,
Nazi pharaonic line. So they're just combining all of these ridiculous lies, some of them being true, i.e., that yes, the royal lines, the ancient royal lines of the Germanic people are in fact related to the pharaonic line. We have proof of that through modern day DNA records. So this and also ancient genealogy. For example, John O'Hart, he traces back the biblical line to Adam, but we know about Adam being representations of the first man and the first lady, quote unquote, of the ancient Egyptian pharaonic line, meaning that's a title, not the actual first human being on the planet Earth. Two, through the Irish High Kings, through Scotia, the Egyptian princess, where the one of the ancient names for Ireland came from, Scotia land, and the modern day northwest portion of the British, the Isle of Great Britain, Scotland. That's where they get their name. So they take these half truths, combine them with actual truths, and they manipulate the opinion of individuals who just know a little bit about everything, but don't know enough to know, hey, this is what was really going on. And the title of tonight's show, to say again, the FBI and the protocols of
so Richard's back
Zion.
in the chat.
What's that?
Oh, sorry. So I can't mute my audio when I'm on video, or at least there's no option. And Richard's asking me to turn my audio down because there's background noise because I'm outside. But if
Okay.
Richard's here, why not just bring Richard on?
Okay. Well, yeah, pay attention. I'm going to try. That's what we haven't been able to do lately. But yeah, I'm Richard on again.
Okay, so I'm going to get off and just let you
I guess
continue.
just
Try to
hang
bring
up,
Richard
and
on.
if we can't bring, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. All right. So, all right, all right. Okay. That's requested to be on. Uh, Richard, if you want to come on, send a request to be on the show, and then we'll try to add you on, because it says like add viewers to your broadcast, and it says Matthew Collins gives me the option to add, Chad Martin no option to add, Clifford Eberhart option to add, Paris Gregory, just Greg Paris, option to add, then down to Richard Hobbs, no option to add. That seems strange, but again, um yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna like the comment. Um, maybe if you know. All right, Richard Hobbs. All right, I'm gonna X out of that. It's giving me the option to bring JD Davis on too, but not Richard Hobbs. That is crazy. All right, well, hey, we got to go along with the show. Um, but hey, Richard, if you could call in 646-668-2151. That's 646-668-2151. We can have you on the broadcast. I don't know what's going on. Maybe there's an option. I'm gonna go back and see, because it's saying David Edgerly bring on camera. it's given the option, but not on everyone. Jake Vega, Matthew Collins has the option. Brian Gray has the option. I don't know. Da, da, da. All right. Well, in any event, then we yeah. I don't know what's going on with this, but in any event, we'll keep going on with the program, and what we're talking about is important. Oh yeah, sorry, Richard. 646-668-2151. Yeah, many apologies, Richard, but we're glad to have you on, and we'll do a special segment with Richard, and I'm gonna have to go put put everything on. Hey, greetings, Greg Paris. All right, we're back. We're back. So I made sure that the phone was on speaker, the volume's all the way up, and we'll hopefully. I know the sound's not going to be great, but again, so so um, you can watch us and then listen to us at the same time on Blog Talk Radio. This is Militia Intelligence Report on Blog Talk Radio. So we got Richard Hobbs live on the line, and we're welcome, Richard, and just you know how it goes. Just chime in anytime you like, and we'll give you the floor. And but getting back to what we were discussing, which I think is an important matter, how easy it is to um, mislead individuals uh, based on a intricate but simple controlled opposition strategy, and we're talking specifically about how an individual that is attempting to get folks to blame the Swiss and Germans and so-called Nazis for everything instead of who actually is in control right now or who is actually doing bad things and doing tricks like stating that Jeffrey Epstein, and I've looked into this, whose Epstein family goes back only to the late 19th century, and in Russia, not in Germany. This individual is stating that Jeffrey Epstein is related somehow to these ancient and medieval German noble family, and therefore it's not the Ashkenazi or the so-called Jew that is behind everything. That's just a front for these individuals who are the Pharaoh Germanic line that are Nazis, and it's not the Jews. They're just the cover story. But in fact, this is out there, but how easy it is just to have one of these individuals, and we know what they do. We brought up John Stewart, whose real name is John Leibowitz, whose brother is a former head of the New York Stock Exchange, former president, I should say, of the New York Stock Exchange. Last name is Leibowitz, but he goes by John Stewart. So making the assertion that Jeffrey Epstein is related to through blood and is some sort of cover story for not the Mossad child blackmail operation or the modern day Ashkenazi that owns the banks and so forth and so on, and that the Rothschilds and the Rothsteins and anyone with a Steen in their name that has changed their name or comes, uses that what do you call it? The uh, Yiddish bastardization of ancient German names, that just because these individuals change their name, that they are that thing. And this gets into something we've discussed at length, is a word is meaningless. A word is just used to describe something. That's why they like to switch things around in the CIA, Mossad controlled popular culture where somebody back from our generation, Richard, remember before the time when bad ever meant anything like that was good? So bad used to exclusively mean bad. But now, if it's used in a certain context, it can mean the exact opposite of what is the original definition of bad. So it's just spreading confusion based on nothing because there is genealogical records and there are genetic test markers and modern scientists agree on that. But how that we are just so fooled and screwed up and all this other stuff. Richard, did you hear that the FBI released the protocols of the learned elders of Zion? Did you see that story that was in the news this week?
Yeah, I did. That was pretty weird. And then from my understanding, they deleted it shortly afterwards.
They did. They did delete it shortly afterwards, and basically when they put it out there, they didn't give any sort of context. But this gets into something that you and I have in common, and as I've stated, Richard actually initiated me into something called the Kappa Alpha Order. So we talk about triune meanings of everything. So, like, everything esoteric has triune meaning. Triune means it has a triple meaning. So, we know, and we're going to get into the Ka first, and then we're going to get into the Ba. Um, and so there's something called the Kappa Alpha Order. And it was started in 1865. And it was, for lack of a better term, and we can get very technical, an homage to Robert E. Lee. And it was who was the president of Washington College at the time. We're getting to the FBI connection here very, very soon. I guarantee you from 1865 to the FBI connection to the Kappa Alpha Order is not far. It gets in with the very formation of the so-called Federal Bureau of Investigations. So,
How about not to jump in here, but how about Hoover?
right. Of course, we're going to get to Hoover, and yeah, Hoover was, of course, the founder of the FBI, a member of the Kappa Alpha Order, and also was when he started the Kappa Alpha Order, he put in all the leadership positions the fellow members of the Kappa Alpha Order. We'll get into a couple former governor of Georgia, Dorsey, Melvin Purvis, Hugh Clegg. What was it? Hugh. We'll get into the specifics here in a second, but I just want to lay out the overarching, some of the, not exclusively, with everything having a triune meaning, including every single letter of every single word. Um, you know, these are just coincidences that aren't random coincidences. So the life force of the soul and the human spirit body in ancient Egypt is the Ka. So there you have the overarching, the most important thing. That's representing the Ka, and of course, whenever anybody gets into biblical or what folks misstate is so-called Masonic knowledge, of course, overarching and intertwined with everything in there is Druidic and ancient Egyptian symbology, almost exclusively, which is throughout the Bible as well. So we've got the Ka. And then, of course, the Kappa Alpha Order is basically a representation of something called Kuklos Adolphon. Richard, are you familiar with Kuklos Adolphon?
I am not.
Okay. So Ku Klux Adolphus was a fraternity found at the University of North Carolina in 1812 during the War of so-called 1812. It went on outside of the bounds of the year 1812. It was known as Old Kappa Alpha, KA, Kappa Alpha, Circle of Brothers, and the Alpha Society, i.e., I am the Alpha and the Omega. The name derives from ancient Greek, kuk, kukla, Adolphus, Adolphon, excuse me. And they're written the Greek letters. So again, this means Circle of Brothers. The organization quickly expanded through the southern United States, not only on college campuses, but also in cities where alumni settled. The society began to decline during the 1850s and disappeared altogether after the Civil War, except for it became something called the Kappa Alpha Order. So then we'll get into the format. Let's see. Yeah, J. Edgar Hoover formed the Kappa Alpha. Excuse me, the Federal Bureau of Investigations. So we'll look up J. Edgar Hoover, and this is overarching. What's that? Hey, Richard. I'm sorry.
Talking to my buddy here.
Oh, right on, right on, right on.
Have some doubters here, but hey, just people that are, speculative, and yeah, look it up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is what I'm. Yeah, I'm. Again, I'm just mostly reading off of Wikipedia, and you know what? Like we were talking about genealogy, and then sometimes some of the sites they go, they diverge sometimes. And so like when you go back far enough, when individuals, most Americans, the people, those who are tied to the royal bloodlines of Europe, and that includes like we say, that includes African Americans who usually have between 25 and 35 percent European genetics. So again, we're exact when we're talking about these things. I can't make this up. In Wikipedia, I'm not saying it's the greatest source of everything, but they source everything. So when one looks at the footnotes, everybody can check out the footnotes, and that's when folks go like, well, how do you know this? Well, I triangulate information, and then we come up with it. So here we go. It was George Washington University, the where where Hoover was initiated into the Kappa Alpha Order, which again we we established what that is and why it's no coincidence, and why it's no random coincidence, because everything coincides from a higher power. It's not like we can control our own will, we can control our own life force, but we can't recreate ourselves. We didn't create ourselves, and then you go like, well, your parents created you, and their parents, and their parents, and their parents, and then you go back, you know, a million years, and you go like, okay, well, who created them? Who created the scenario by which every person is born? I mean, to deny some sort of divine intelligence seems absurd. But again, we're just telling you that's what this is. That ancient Egyptian symbolism. And why is that? Because the genetic um, the genetic posterity of the ancient Egyptians, which are the same Hyksos pharaohs of the Bible that represent the tribes of Israel, it's all one and the same people. Now, some folks have written volumes on this. Michael Tazarian, Connor McDarry, um, let's see what Madame Blavatsky has gotten into this root race theory. I'm not saying that it makes anything except for these are the facts. These are the way things are, and they match up with modern day testing. So when we say that that King Tut has a Y DNA haplogroup of R1b, I didn't make that up. I know enough about genetic genealogy to know that my Y DNA haplogroup is R1b, and that 90% of Irish men, their Y DNA haplogroup is R1b, and 85 to 90% of quote unquote Scottish men, their Y DNA haplogroup is R1b, and that 75 to 85% of English men, their Y DNA haplogroup is R1b. And then it goes, to Spain, similar 60 to 75%, Western Germany and Switzerland 60 to 65%. So again, when they start saying, yes, the pharaonic line are these individuals of these bloodlines, yes, that seems to be true. That seems to be true. Clifford, hey, you can come back on since we got Clifford on the on the phone call, because Clifford is familiar with this information. We go over this every week. So we have this information. We've verified it. Anyone can do a Google search. We've posted it. We've discussed it. We've done videos about this. We've beaten that proverbial horse. Not that we would ever advocate beating any animals for any reason, but it's just we've verified it over and over again. We connect the dots. Yeah, go for it. I don't really know about. Hey, Cliff, can you like mute yourself?
Yeah, no. So that's the thing with video. There's no, at least if you can find an option to control volume, I can't. So if you,
Okay.
so yeah, I'm outside.
Okay.
Yeah, and so now there's people honking because they ordered food. So.
Okay. So let's get into the ginger hair thing, because this gets into the theory of the cover story of modern genetics is the out of Africa theory. Okay, meaning that ancient like a representation of ancient Eve, the first human being, came from an area around Kenya, and then that all human beings went from out of Africa from east to west, to through Asia to Europe. But again, this is a theory that is 100%. Hey, Cliff, are you gonna be? Can you just call can you call back?
Yeah,
It's okay. I'll add you later. So again, this is proven wrong through something called Africans are related to Homo erectus, according to studies that I've seen. I've done research on this, but Europeans and Asians are not. So there are those who theorize, and they use this out of Africa theory as the base, that everything moves from east to west. Now, there are individuals like myself that say that's not the case, that everything went from west to east, and that yes, why the pharaohs in their sarcophagus, in their tombs, have ginger hair is because they're related to the ancient Irish. They are the Hyksos pharaohs, the shepherd kings coming from the west to east. I don't know what further information does he have that says ginger hair is it comes from from Asia. Now we know that individuals like Alexander the Great in what we now call Asia Minor, that he had auburn ginger hair and pale skin, and he was of this same bloodline. That is true. And we know that in China, they've discovered ancient tombs full of shamanic warrior priests with blonde hair, pale skin, and blue eyes in China.
You just like talking shit.
Okay, so I mean, it brings up a point that yes, there is evidence of individuals that we would refer to as modern day Europeans throughout the world. Let's look this up. Asia. Let's see. China
I will say that
cannabis. Yeah, go for it. You got the floor.
male or female, all gingers have a hell of a goddamn temper.
I don't know. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but uh I mean, it could be. I mean, it seems that most of the legitimate let's see. I'm trying to look caves. Yeah, caves, caves, shaman. We do know that that the royal lines, yeah, they seem to be what folks would call gingers, of ancient Europe. That it's written about in the Bible. It is an ancient text. We have verification through DNA that yes, the pharaonic line would have been ginger. And let's see, where are we going with this? I'm trying to find this it's information, and if folks in the let's see, somebody call me, I'm back in RVA. Yeah, okay, anyway, I believe Trump is ginger. Yeah, I don't think he is. I don't think Trump is like that. But in any event, his wives seem to be verified Ashkenazi, um, marijuana, marijuana. I never know whether to like look up cannabis with the word cannabis or marijuana. Let's see, archaeological tradition, shamanism. I mean, this was all over the the internet about 5 or 6 years ago. Trump is blonde ginger. These guys, they get crazy. Uh,
Orange man bad.
yeah. Orange man bad. Hey, Cliff, if you can find that, I don't know. Yeah, we keep going over the same thing, and sometimes I get frustrated when it's something I've talked about a dozen times, and it's like, how did this disappear off the internet? How is this not coming up through through a search? You don't need to retrieve the information again. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, again, I guess that's what we began talking about. No offense to anyone, but we were talking about folks with just like a little bit of information or saying things that they don't really know much about is how like folks in the general population, they really just don't know much of anything. And I guess it would be easy, it is easy to distract. So in our title, the FBI and the Protocols of Zion, I mean, everyone knows the Protocols of Zion. If you read it, that's the blueprint for the one world government under Agenda 21. It's coming out right now. Was Hitler Jewish? And I teased covering that a little bit in the beginning by saying like, hey, I've really maybe overstated the case because of Hitler's Y DNA is in that part of the world would be associated most closely with the Ashkenazi bloodline, the E1B Y DNA haplogroup. If you're in Austria at that point, that's probably what one is connected with. Um, we got a caller, so we're going to take this call. So certainly Hitler had a Y DNA haplogroup. Yeah, the 574 number dropped. So if that was a mistake, you can call back. We'll bring you on. But does that mean he was, not what he would call a Mischling, or what the Nazi government would call a Mischling, which means um, part Jewish, part not Jewish. Now we know that there were over 50,000 verified, but certainly more Jews and or Mischlings in the Nazi government. So that is significant, and a lot of folks in that. Well, George Soros is a good example, but he seems to be maybe not much of a Mischling. He seems to be a Hungarian Jew. And again, ethnically, there are ancient ties between Germany and Hungary, um, but it's a different ethnicity in some ways. Because again, R1b, there's hundreds of haplogroups or subclades, I should say, under R1b. And then there's subclades and subclades of subclades. Through time, there are changes in the DNA through what's that word, Richard? Um, I'll look it up. What changes DNA? Yeah, mutation. Thank you. Hey, thanks. That's exactly what I was looking through. Yeah, looking for through mutation. So, if somebody's an R1b, they might be, cousins with somebody who's R dash, U105 and R1b dash M dash 222. They would be maybe related, uh, you know, 6,000 years ago, but not 500 years ago. Like somebody with the same, well, I guess it would be more like a couple thousand years ago with if somebody's got the same subclade. But again, this is mutations through time, and it's a complex subject. Yeah, ancient. Oh, thanks, Clifford. So there, if you want to check out the ancient Aryans in China, it's www.barons.com/articles/ancient dash marijuana dash discovered dash in dash China. So there you have it. We've said this many times, but again, we're just trying to get technical. We're not attempting to like make anybody upset or say anything other than, hey, this is what it is, and this is really what matters. Because when we talk about Freemasonry, which everyone thinks is some sort of thing where they got that's the top. Freemasonry is nothing but a contract with this royal bloodline, and we get that from Old York Constitutions of 926. We've covered that dozens of times on this broadcast. So Old York Constitutions of 926, you'll find that exclusively, masonry means nothing but it's a contract between the legitimate monarch of England and the Masons, the so-called Freemasons. And there's some good rules in there. I don't ever think that Old York Constitutions of 926 is not applicable today. And I will tell you that the individuals that call themselves royal, and they're not of the same bloodline. So this guy Roland Max, he puts out a picture of Jacob Rothschild and the so-called Duke of Kent right next to each other. They're obviously identical and looking individuals. They're obviously they look more closely related than almost any other first cousins that I've seen, but they certainly are as close as first cousins. And he makes up some convoluted story, except for what's verified, and pretends as if, oh, the Rothschilds, they're not Jewish, and it's because they are this Templar Swiss German line. That's why the Rothschilds look exactly like the Windsors, who are the Saxe Coburg Gothas, which is the exact opposite of the twist of the story, because obviously we know that during the reign of Queen Victoria, that her husband, Prince Albert, was the result of a Germanic princess interbreeding with a court Jew. We know that. If you don't know, if you haven't heard it directly, if you want to question it, if you haven't listened to our broadcast where we've said this over and over again, look it up yourself, and don't believe it when they say, when all you see is, oh, the thing that is claimed that there's all this verification for, it's just not true. Why? Just because we said we fact checked it and it's not true. And that's all you can find about it. Oh, this thing, it's not true. That's when you do a Google search now. Yeah. So in any event, but we know that, oh yeah, the fact checking is an absolute abomination. Um so we know that when the Rothschilds got these royal houses of Europe in so much debt that they could never pay it off, after they had gotten through all the expulsions, through their usury and everything else, and they enslaved everyone, that all the royal houses of Europe were dependent on the Rothschilds to hold their paper throne, their front, their cover story that they have a throne. Then the Rothschilds, all they had left was the breeding rights. That was the only thing that these royal houses could offer the Rothschilds, and that's why the Duke of Kent and Jacob Rothschild look exactly the same, not because they both share the same ancient German bloodline. Go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
I'm just saying, sorry to interrupt there, but they're all inbred, right?
Well, you see, that's another question that needs to be like parsed exactly. So when you say they, like, it is interesting that all Ashkenazis are at the most fifth cousins, and mostly all Ashkenazi are fourth cousins with one another. So it is true. It is true, going back to the pharaonic lines, that yes, there was a lot of inbreeding, certainly. Um, and yes, there is some inbreeding when it comes to the royal houses of Europe. But hey, I'm not ever going to defend the Catholic Church. However, there were incidents in England, in Scotland, in Germany, in Italy, Tyrol, Austria, Denmark. There were instances where the church intervened and, at least as far as their cover story, made null and void marriages between cousins that were too closely related. So I guess that's always been. I mean, we guess we know that's always been a thing because we have genetic proof. I'm not here to say something is bad or good. I'm just here to say this is what it is, and certainly I'm not advocating like inbreeding. Um, as far as marrying your cousin, I'm just saying like the so-called modern day Jews, they are more closely related to one another than say the other ethnic groups of Europe. And what we know is that the so-called modern day Jews, the Ashkenazi, are exclusively European in origin, exclusively, and they have very little to do with folks from any other place. I mean, Anatolia, yes. The Levant region, no. Even though the modern so-called European non-Ashkenazi is tied to the Levant region. We've verified that in all these different ways. But again, this gets back to not not east to west origins of humans, origins and spreading out of human culture, but west to east. So that is all civilization, according to Connor McDowry, according to Michael Tazarian, who I give more credence to than individuals who make claims based on very little or nothing. So it's not my research, but we'll get into some of my specific research, and we've already covered that with the Ka and the Kappa Alpha Order, which is a the posterity of something called Kuklos Adolphon, which is obviously something that is very closely related to um, uh, ancient bloodlines of the founding stock of America. Um, let's see. According to the fraternity, we're still on. Uh, okay. That actually, that they're saying that the yeah. Go ahead.
Elaborate a little more on the car.
The Ka, yeah, let's get into the Ka. Yeah, the Ka is like there's basically, and this has to do with the life force and the afterlife, and there's two elements of the soul to the ancient Egyptian mystery schools, um, and that's the Ka and the Ba, and that's the first part of Kabbalah. So the connections between Kabbalah, which is not exclusive to the Jews. The what is defined by C.C. Zane of the Brotherhood of Light as the unwritten spiritual tradition of all people. So let's get his. So that's why we're talking about the Ka and the Ba. So I'm reading from.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, real quick. All right, real quick. Okay. So, yeah, the original people of Egypt, they're Caucasian Christians.
Well, I mean, Caucasian, that comes from the Caucasus Mountains. So, like, what we would consider Caucasians, yes. But again, that's part of this west to or east to west theory. And what I'm stating is that they came from what we now call Ireland, the civilized peoples, that civilization stems from Ireland, but that Caucasian is something where they say like, oh yes, it's through these mountains that all the quote unquote Indo-Aryan or Indo-European peoples came from, that they stem from this point. I don't agree with that, but as far as what everybody thinks Caucasians is, like they would say, Chris, you're a Caucasian, and I would say, no, I'm ancient Irish and modern Irish. That would be more exact to me. But, for lack of a better term, comprehending their misnomer of the word Caucasian, yes. The ruling lines, and were they Caucasian in that their skin was as pale? I don't know. I mean, there's some evidence to that, but they definitely have the same genetic code through their male line as modern day Western Europeans. Yes. So it seems that way. They had the same, I guess, color hair, depicted with blue eyes. Like look at the bust of Nefertiti. I would say that would be the best the best way to display this bust of Nefertiti. Bust of Nefertiti. And then we'll add to that blue eyes European. Okay? So, there we go. Bust of Nefertiti. I'm sure y'all have all seen it. So, yeah, this is what they would call very European features with Nefertiti. Maybe not quite as pale, but again, I mean, that has to do with location, etc., etc. But there's a lot of disinformation about what's going on out there, and uh, the idea that even there was this idea that the Moors were sub-Saharan Africans, but the Moors were Berbers, and the Moors slash Berbers were more what we would consider Caucasian than the modern day Arab. So so yeah, absolutely. I mean, I find this stuff just like getting into debates randomly on Facebook. But let's look into that Berber Moor Moors um da, 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 genetics genetics.
Real quick,
Yeah.
real quick here, buddy. I've got like 5 minutes. I've got to roll up.
Okay.
But what are your predictions for the rest of the year?
I mean, my predictions are that things are going to continue to get worse. I don't. I really don't know. We're trying to do something different here and say, we reject everything that is being tossed at us, and that we wish to restore some sort of natural order of rule on planet Earth, and that what's going on now is, and I say this over and over again, you like the people of the world, they have two choices. They can keep going down this path with Agenda 21, increased martial law, loss of freedom. That's what I predict. Less freedom, more suffering, until all of the individuals who are, millionaires and billionaires, judges and lawyers, all government officials in all nations, until all the leaders of all the militaries of the world, until they are neutralized lawfully for their treason, it's only going to get worse. And my prediction, if that does not happen, is um, forced vaccinations, uh, medical and medical police state, actual police state. Um, uh, the cash will be gone. I mean, cash is pretty much gone as it is, and you'll basically you won't see much of anything except for like Amazon freaking delivery persons wearing hazmat suits, and your town will be continue to look like a ghost town. Businesses will continue to go out of businesses, out of they'll continue to go under, I should say. Homelessness will increase. The standard of living will go down. The longevity of the average human being will be cut down, and we'll have less enjoyment and more suffering. What do you think? I mean, does does that check out with what you predict for the future, Richard?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'll tell you what, it's gonna be a wild, wild ride to the end of this year and even beyond. I mean,
Certainly.
regardless who wins the election, I mean, it's yeah,
Eh,
it's gonna be a rough.
Right, and we know that the election is rigged, and like whatever they have to do for the narrative to like get done. I saw a headline today talking about, hey, if Trump loses the election, we'll have a lot of right wing terrorism and stuff like that. So they're kind of like setting up the scenario. They're setting up the bad guy in the scenario. Um,
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, hey, the so-called right wing or even the centralists, I believe haven't even started to protest yet. I mean, we got the Antifa and the BLM, but man, we got a lot of cops, a lot of military, we got a lot of rednecks out here that can take down a buck from 300 yards away.
but Richard,
So,
Richard,
it
like,
could get interesting.
yeah, I guess that's right. But the cops, they're in on all that stuff, and if I didn't add them to the list that need to be neutralized, they certainly are added to the list. And like, I can tell you that somebody being able to like shoot a defenseless woodland creature from 300 yards, while that might be impressive in a certain sense, it's not impressive compared to biological warfare agents, weather warfare, voice to skull technology, uh, mini drone kill bots, and
You got a point there.
yeah. So again, um, you know, I attempt to get away from like I was thinking this earlier. I'm like, compared to like right wingers, like in most ways, and left wingers, like you can't get any more left and right wing than I. Because again, what does it come down to? What does everything come down to? It comes down to, we're told at this point that we're supposed to sacrifice our well-being and our abilities to do what's best for ourselves, uh, um, based on some made-up nonsense coming from liars that are obviously engaged in war against us. So we're supposed to punish ourselves on behalf of other individuals that our freedom being taken away does nothing to keep them safe. And even if it did, they're in no position to ask us to do this. They got everybody twisted around in such circles, they don't even know what right wing is, they don't know what left wing is, they just say stupid nonsense. I mean, Richard, we covered this with last week with that stuff with the white supremacist group that calls themselves Boogaloo and wears Hawaiian t-shirts. I mean, who comes up with this stuff? We already established who comes up with this.
CIA off, right?
Yeah, of course course it is. What isn't? What isn't? I'm telling you, it all is. If it's got a name, I mean, we like Occupy, Occupy Wall Street, Canvas, Otpor, CIA, Federal Reserve Bank, Security Services, FBI. I mean, and then we get into the FBI because we'll get back to this as we close out with Richard. So the FBI was founded by members of the Kappa Alpha Order, which we established is an offshoot of something called Ku Klux Adolphon. That's Kuklosadelphon. Okay, and we know that the Ka is the life force of the in the ancient Egyptian mystery school pantheon, and so basically that would be, I guess, associated closely to the will, the human will. So we know that the FBI, when they first came out, okay, who was in charge? It was Hoover and the other members of the Kappa Alpha Order, like Melvin Purvis. Richard, have you ever heard about Melvin Purvis? He Okay, so he was the guy that took down like a lot of the most wanted criminals during the we call it Depression era, like Dillinger. And at the end of his life, this guy allegedly he was a member of the Kappa Alpha Order, the chapter at the University of South Carolina. He's from Timmonsville, South Carolina. And at the end of this guy's very interesting life, he allegedly shot himself in the head, which I do not believe. So I don't believe that. But what I do know that went on with Melvin Purvis is, he was a movie star. He had to, along with J. Edgar Hoover, fellow member of the Kappa Alpha Order, the Order of the Ka, based on Ku Klux Adolphon and other organizations that are maybe more infamous. Um, uh,
I did hear Chris. Sorry,
no, no, go ahead. That's what I have you on for. Yeah.
I did. I did hear that Hoover he took the customs out of the Library of Congress.
Yeah. Yeah, that is what is said.
The official car book. You know.
Yeah, that is. I've not verified that one way or the other, but I have definitely looked into that. So here's here I'll show you this. And this is experience of my famous uncle Melvin Purvis with Hoover's FBI. Purvis is in charge of the Chicago office. That was the headquarters of all the underworld activity of that period. Joined a fraternity. Incorrect about that. It's not a fraternity. The Kappa Alpha Order. Melvin Purvis and Hermann Goering stayed at his estate for several days. So we're going to get into that because also one thing that was strange, but besides this guy Melvin Purvis being some kind of like movie star and the quote unquote G man. Hey, all right, all right. Hey, thanks for joining us. Hopefully, we'll have Cliff or Richard back on.
Thanks for having me, man. Look forward to maybe catching you next week.
Yeah, sounds great, Richard. Hey, thanks a lot for everything, and hopefully we'll have Richard back on soon. And it was great to have him on. Um, so, all right, cheers. Thanks, Richard. Peace. Okay, so this is talking about Melvin Purvis, and another interesting thing about Melvin Purvis, besides the fact that he was the guy that was taking down all the most wanted. Purvis later led the manhunts that tracked down the most famous outlaws of the time: John Dillinger, Pretty Boy Floyd, Babyface Nelson. Purvis had captured more public enemies than any other agent in FBI history in only 4 months. That seems a little suspicious to me. But again, all these things are cover stories inside of cover stories and inside of cover stories. Reporters noted an instant liking to the modest Purvis, the mild mannered G Man, blah, 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 blah. So then it gets into Hoover asked Purvis to lay low, so Hoover didn't like that, for a few days and keep away from his office so that he would avoid the glory and attention. Hoover, the media, however, the media requested Purvis as well as photos of him, which were routinely denied by the FBI by Hoover. Finally, in December 1934, Hoover stripped Purvis of his command of the Chicago office and officially made Purvis not in charge of the Dillinger case, quote unquote. Hoover began to gather intelligence about every move Purvis made. This seems to be interesting when we're going to, and again, this is stuff we've already covered on this broadcast, but we'll cover again. I have no problem with that. I'm just giving context. All this led to Purvis's resignation in July 1935. 1 year after the Dillinger case, Purvis moved to California, where he passed the bar, lived on Lombard Street in San Francisco. He began endorsing products such as Gillette razors and Dodge cars. He entered into a contract with General Foods in which the Junior G-Man Corp was created with badges and boxes. That's some interesting government propaganda there. Of the popular breakfast cereal Post Toasties. In 1936, Purvis signed on to host a radio show called Junior G-Man, Melvin Purvis Club. The G-Man Club became the most popular club of its kind, enrolling 260,000 children in the U.S. He dated Jean Harlow and was a friend of Clark Gable. Advertising for engaged to marry Janice Jarrett. Blah blah blah. But here's where it gets interesting. Melvin left a few days later after the wedding with this the Janice Jarrett, excuse me, Lucky Strike girl. Melvin left for a few days for New York and then extended trip to Europe. I have several letters from him to my mother, who seemed to be one of his favorites and a spokesperson for the sisters. Most of the letters were typewritten in hotel stationery, but several were in longhand. One letter was typed from Paris on June 13th, stating that he was to travel to Berlin. This led to my first anecdote, which was an unusual encounter between Purvis and Hermann Göring. Okay, so top Nazi official. You see. All right. Göring, there's Göring, was born in Germany in 1893. He was a World War I. Y'all know Göring, World War I ace. 1935, Göring took command of the German Air Force. Göring was fascinated with American gangsters. In 1935, he heard that Purvis was in Berlin and rang him at his hotel. "Hello, big G-Man," he said. Göring then invited Purvis to his estate on a wild boar hunt. Karinhal was the name of the estate, was the country residence of Göring, and was built on a large hunting estate northeast of Berlin. It was named in honor of his Swedish first girlfriend, Corinne. Göring was the master huntsman of the German Third Reich, um, and had a fascination with wild boar hunting, with the medieval tradition of using a spear or lance. Melvin Purvis and Hermann Goering stayed at his estate for several days, and Purvis bagged a boar and returned stateside with the tusks as a memento. Goering also presented him with a sword. Interesting. So when we talk about um, initiations and of Masonic orders, or more accurate, royal orders of Europe, which again trace themselves back to ancient Egypt, there is often a sword involved. So Goring presented Melvin Purvis with a sword. Goering was a truly evil and ruthless man, but he was one of the great hunters in the grand tradition. He loved to share the experience of the hunt with his closest friends. I don't know if he was an evil and ruthless man. I mean, I guess he wasn't as ruthless as the individuals who defeated him. Not maybe not as evil. Definitely not as evil. Okay. Then a second anecdote with Herman, and there's more. I'm skipping. With Hermann Goring took place in 1946 when he was a war criminal in the Nuremberg trials. Purvis was asked by the War Crimes Office to interrogate him in his cell. At first, Goring recognized Purvis and said, "Oh, yes, Big G Man." He asked Purvis if there was any way he could avoid execution, as he did not want to be hanged. Purvis said no. After a brief interrogation by Purvis was completed on October 15, 1946, the night before his scheduled execution was to take place, Goering swallowed a cyanide pill. So that's another thing Melvin Purvis had in common with Hermann Goring, alleged suicide. In 1960, Purvis was suffering from poor health. On February 29th, leap year 1960, while at his home in Florence, South Carolina, he died from a gunshot wound to his head, fired from a pistol given to him by his fellow FBI agents in recognition to his time with the Bureau, allegedly. Okay, so we got into that. So that gets more into what we're talking about. The FBI and the Protocols of Zion. Was Hitler Jewish? The evil German lie. So we're covering the evil German lie. The evil German lie, and we covered that at the beginning, where these jokers are pretending that something different happened other than the Jewish bloodlines buying breeding rights among the aristocracy of Europe. That's what's going on. These jokers say, "Hey, because these so-called Jews have the same last name as these members of German aristocracy, and that they changed the name. They changed their name to that to fool the public that they are the same individuals." So let's look into differences. Let's see. R1B King Tut. Tutankhamun. King Tut. All right. Half European men share King Tut's DNA. King Tut related to half of European men. Since King Tut belonged to the R1B Indo-European bloodline, the R1B haplogroup has also been found in Neolithic Spain. That doesn't quite hold with enough said about blah blah blah. As for King Tut's private company, IGENEA claims he belonged to the R1B1A2 based on something that appeared on the Discovery Channel. and that's what these individuals claim, that they tested it. They were the ones that tested it. So again, hey, greetings, Amanda. Happy you're watching. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for all the work you do exposing the government lies and corruption, especially when it has to do with chemtrailing, weather warfare, and much more. King Tut Scottish, um, Pharaoh Tutankhamun, Amenhotep, were R1B. So let's show you this. So you don't just take my word for it. You can look this up yourself and triangulate the information, and I guess rehash out something we do and something we go over almost every week on this show. So there we have that about that. So there's no it's no wonder why we have such a fascination with ancient Egypt and the Bible and all of these what modern folks misname Masonic organizations, why there's such a tie to ancient Egypt. It's because we are the pharaonic line of ancient Egypt here in America. At least the founding stock is, and even others who aren't of the founding stock, like we said, you know, 25% of African American DNA is European, and in some cases it's much higher than that. But again, we're getting to the point where narrowing down, we're putting into our religious sermon and text that we don't believe that the mythology about the east to west migration of human civilization. It was certainly west to east, going back thousands of years. Um, and we're not buying that the Germans are the most evil individuals. We are saying that the Germanic peoples of the world, and that's when we get into uh, that's when we get into like what is exactly everything. Like when Richard Hobbs asked, "Were the ancient Egyptians Caucasians?" And the Caucasians is based on what I believe to be a myth that the Indo-European or the Indo-Aryan uh, stemmed from the Caucasus Mountains. I don't believe that. I believe that they were all over the world at the point in history where the allegation that the Indo-Europeans stemmed from the Caucasus Mountains. They were already in China. They were throughout Europe. They were in ancient Egypt. They were in ancient North Africa, and they were, I believe, also. And there's others that are making this claim. I'm just, you know, that they may have been in ancient North America before my ancestor Henry Sinclair beat Columbus to discover the New World by quite a few years. So that's what we're telling you. That's what we're saying, and that we're unpacking all of this esoteric information for you. And I just want to prove something because um, let's see, Jeffrey Epstein, Von Epstein, Pharaoh show. So I'm just going to point out to you so you can recognize it. All the this what's the word I'm looking for? This kind of complex but easy to recognize disinformation when they tell you, oh, it's the Jesuits, and it's not the Jews. They're the victim in front. They're not the ones who are at the top of the pyramid, so to say. They're not the ones that belong at the top of the pyramid. Under God's law, under God's rule, they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be at the top of the pyramid. They are the synagogue of Satan. That's very true. No doubt about that. And that they are European as well. Um, but maybe exclusively more European than the average modern day European man, because again, our bloodlines going back thousands of years would have been in possibly North Africa, the Levant region, as well as England, modern day England, Ireland, and Scotland. So here I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this, and this is what we got going. Okay. So here, check this out. Jeffrey von Epstein of the intermediate bloodlines since ancient times of Epstein Castle, Germany. And if y'all weren't around at the beginning of the show, I stated how I know. I've done genealogical research on the von Epstein family. And there's, we can go into the Wikipedia, and this is a noble family. And you see the comments with family connection to the Freud clan. No, I mean, I don't see that. I haven't seen that in any evidence, but in any event, that's neither here nor there, because Freud is certainly an Ashkenazi. I say this guy, meaning the Pharaoh show, whoever that guy is full of shit. I've been attempting to track this guy and debate this Pharaoh show chump for years. He says, he uses the title Central Intelligence Agency with the logo. It's Synagogue of Satan propaganda. Tell him I will destroy him in a debate. I'm trying to see if whoever will pass this message along. I've been doing that for years. And basically, here I say more. I have done extensive genealogical research, including to my Swiss and German ancestry. Interestingly, I have traced ancestry to von Epstein line. The idea that the Ashkenazi Epstein family is connected to the aristocratic family is far-fetched. Then which aristocratic family the Epstein isn't a part of? The von Epstein family. And here I will display that. Okay, saying this, much the same way as Jon Stewart from The Daily Show is not related to the royal Stewart line. Okay, also, where is the evidence pointing to von Epstein connection? Just a quick look at his genealogical record, that being Jeffrey Epstein, record points to typical Russian Eastern European Ashkenazi background, not German aristocratic connection. And so I'll show you something with these imposters that you'll see a lot of. A lot of these Americans, you'll see this. There's Jeffrey Epstein. And if you go down the Epstein line, you'll see Eastern Europe, Lithuania, Russia, not Germany. Not even German Ashkenazi, so he's not even connected to the German Jews that were in this country that came over with I guess first with the Dutch masters, and then also after uh, the I guess Cromwell brought them back into England, and I guess some with German immigrants, other kind of German immigrants that were coming into the United States in the late 17th and early 18th century. That would be the late 1600s, early 1700s, with the other German immigrants that were coming in. But this is different. So again, what does this prove? It just proves that folks just will say whatever and they don't have anything to back it up. Yeah, Buck White. Yeah, John Leibowitz, John Stewart. We went over that. Uh, um, yeah, we went over that earlier. Yeah, John Leibowitz is calls himself John Stewart. That doesn't mean he's related to, um, King James the first of England and the sixth of Scotland. It doesn't mean that at all. Just because they have the same name, that's part of their trick. That's what they do. That is what they do. So again, to repeat, this is showing you, this is displaying to everyone who's watching that just saying something is meaningless, and it might fool a bunch of folks, but it's not the way. For example, Carl Jung and Freud, and Sigmund Freud, they were contemporaries. They were both in Switzerland at the same time, and but Jung is Swiss and Freud is not ethnically. Or I mean, is any way you wish, one wishes to to you know construct things in order to get to the bottom line, because we've already established a word is just, I mean, there's power in word, there is meaning in word, but at the end of the day, if when using certain different kinds of codes, um, numbers can represent words. Numbers always represent words in a certain way. Certain codes can take the place of certain words. Um, back in the day, somebody, might call and go like, before they, I guess, started selling like cannabis everywhere. Hey, is Charlie around? Hey, are those T-shirts in? Whatever. It's code. You know what somebody's saying by saying like, hey, this means that, and that means this. But at the end of the day, there's something called genetic code and blood types and genealogy, and that was important. Um, this book, the Bible, if it's not important, why do so many chapters begin with with a layout of genealogy exclusively? So another thing that folks do is they use code to hide things from the profane. And I mean, when Richard Hobbs and I were discussing certain things, like, I mean, there's a certain initiation ritual we are both familiar with, and there's the allegation that all the other initiation rituals are in the Library of Congress, but this particular one that we're discussing is not. So there you have it. But we're not going to tell you everything, but I'm telling you enough so that one can find this stuff out and more, and go into a a deeper knowledge of this information. Okay. Uh, yep. So there you have it. That's the background of this stuff. And I'll tell you, when they start saying everybody's like a Nazi or they're evil, I wish to tell you, and we'll get into this. Was Hitler Jewish? So let's just enter that in Hitler Jewish. And they've hidden a lot of this information. So again, I'm not the one that's going to say anymore um, that Hitler was Jewish. His Y DNA haplogroup is associated with individuals that they call Ashkenazi Jews in verified uh, genetic research, in the realm of verified genetic research. Okay. And also, there's some other things about there were several dozen or a couple dozen families in New York City with the last name Hitler in New York City during the first part of the Second World War, and they were all Jewish. And there was a newspaper article in which one of the individuals named Hitler stated, who was Jewish in New York City, stated that he did not know any individuals with the last name Hitler that was not Jewish. Now, there's other circumstantial evidence, and that there's genetic and biological evidence as well. So we'll get to that, and then out of that springs a bunch of conspiracy theories. But again, that does not really matter because of of the fact that the E1B1B uh, Y-DNA haplogroup. Um, all right, here we go. To unravel the mystery of the Fuhrer's roots, the Belgian journalist Jean-Paul Mulders teamed up with Mark Vermeuren, a historian who has written extensively about Hitler and his ancestors. The duo collected saliva samples from 39 of the infamous dictator's, I don't know why they got to call him infamous, living relatives, including a great nephew, Alexander Stewart Houston, who lives in New York, and an Austrian cousin identified only as Norbert H. Tests were then conducted to reveal sample principal haplogroups, which are sets of chromosomes that geneticists used to define specific populations. Okay. So you can look at this while I'm not making this up. Writing in the Flemish language magazine Knack, Mulders reported that the relative's most dominant haplogroup, known as E1B1B, is rare in Western European men, but common among North Africans. So then that gets into Berbers, North Africans not being sub-Saharan Africans, and that the Moors were not sub-Saharan Africans genetically and ethnically. North Africans, and particularly the Berber tribes of Morocco, Algeria, Libya, and Tunisia. It is also one of the major founding lineages of the Jewish population, present in 18 to 20% of Ashkenazi Jews and 8.6 to 30% of Sephardic Jews. Now, don't get confused in thinking that there's a difference between Ashkenazi and Sephardic. It's not really that much of a difference. One means the Spanish Jews, the other means German Jews. In other words, Hitler's family tree may have included Jewish and African ancestors. That's North African ancestors. So there you go. That's what we know. That's what we know. And so I'm not saying, maybe he didn't know about this. Maybe some generations back, but it just seems strange when you combine all the stuff about what's going on with this genetic evidence, with the evidence of Hitler's direct family members being involved in Jewish organizations, and again, individuals living at the same time as Hitler with the same last name, and all of the other ones seeming to be Jewish. Let's see. Hitler families in New York. So this, like, in case you're not reading between the lines, this is all about controlling the opposition. Jewish. And we've been over this on this show. Okay, when Hitler was a popular Jewish last name in New York. That's here we go. Times of Israel, JTA, the German. Okay, so that's these two. Okay. So, okay, I was pretty accurate. It was more than 30 families, so several dozen, probably more than 30. I don't know. What does that mean? 31, 32, 33? Oh, yeah. Kamala Harris, husband, Jewish. All right. JTA article from 1933 entitled Kiss the Mezuzah, excuse me, and Meet the Brownsville Hitlers is a snapshot of a time when Hitler was a recognizable, if increasingly ironic, Jewish surname in New York City. According to Rose Hitler, more than 30 families across the city bore the last name of the man who became the Chancellor of Germany. There's some of the marriage licenses. Let's see. But the article was accurate about the increasing discomfort New Yorkers named Hitler, or Hitler, with two T's, were feeling, living in what was a very Jewish neighborhood at the time. Frank and Rose's kids began having trouble at school. They were Jewish. Their name was Hitler. So again, this gets into our overarching theme for the show. Somebody's last name, it may mean something and it may not. For example, when we displayed a couple weeks ago my last name, and it's different derivations, and that the Dorsey family and the Darcy family are different, even though I have on both sides of my family Dorseys and Darcys. It's not the same. And that Dorsey is ancient Irish. It's anglicized from beginning with Mac Dorsey and O Dorsey, with a C instead of an S, but with the S sound. And then the myth genealogy tracing back to, and I mean myth meaning it's ancient and it's not true, tracing back to the brother, the first individual taking the last name that later became Dorsey, the brother of Nile of the Nine Hostages having that last name, and that many modern day Dorseys, including myself, have the R-M222Y DNA haplogroup, as does Joseph Smith, as does a number of famous individuals. Joseph Smith, founder of the Latter Day Saints. So just because something has the same name doesn't mean it's the same thing. And there's certainly one has to triangulate information, read between the lines, verify what one is able to verify, and speculate on what one can't verify. So, yeah, I mean, there you have it. Um, another connection between the FBI and Hitler and the Nazis, besides the fact that uh, Melvin Purvis um, interrogated Hermann Goering, and had been stated his estate um, during the I guess the apex of the Nazi government in the mid 1930s. Um, Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler. Hitler. Alive after war. Okay. So again, I know all this information. I'm not I'm not making this stuff up. It's not me who's making this stuff up. FBI records. Here's this is FBI.gov. And here is allegations. You can look it up yourself. That the FBI had eyeballs on Adolf Hitler after the war. There's some redacted documents right there. You can see it. Look it up yourself. So I'm just pointing you in all the right directions. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything else. And again, like I said, I don't know everything. I wish to know as much as I can, but I know enough to be able to pick out this nonsense right off the bat. And as we were saying before, getting back into the political side of things, as Richard mentioned on the air, it doesn't matter who wins the election. It's already decided. Um, let's see if we can bring anybody on. Anyway, so 90 seconds. All right, I guess we're coming to the end of the second hour. We'll go a few minutes over. Elections, they don't matter. The ideas of officials, they're the puppets. They're the puppets of this bloodline that we're talking about, and one has two choices basically. And I think that the last time we we had a like a public group talking about the stark choices between rule by worldwide Jewry and so-called Aryan rule, that it seems very suspicious that that it was just kind of the wiping out and the making into the myth of it being the most evil thing in the world to oppose this worldwide Jewish power network, and that there were such close ties between the leader of this group and the Jews, and the fact uh, that things went so far downhill for the bloodlines of the ancient aristocracy of Europe, and that they they being the ancient bloodlines, the aristocratic bloodlines of Europe, started to be associated with the crimes that a completely different bloodline is doing, and that being this Eastern European or Ashkenazi ancient Jewish bloodline, which we've identified week after week, year after year, over and over and over again, almost exclusively European, more European than the average European male or American white male. We have our uh, descendancy not only comes from ancient Europe, but it also comes from the Levant region. So we're talking about the R1b haplogroup. It's associated not only with ancient Ireland and ancient England and ancient Germany and ancient France and ancient Spain and England, etc., Germany, Switzerland. It's also associated with ancient Egypt, and we're telling you why this is, how this is, and this idea of this white genocide agenda and this idea of white minority in America, and that it's great when we target and get rid of white individuals, so-called white individuals. The world will go into into a hellscape even more than it is today. The only thing that's going to save it is the royal bloodlines of the people of God to take over our rightful place as the rulers of the world, controlling the weapons of war and the issuance of currency, and instead and the airwaves of the world. Instead, we have the synagogue of Satan. So we'll just leave it there. We come full circle every week. So this is Chris Dorsey signing off. Peace and God bless.